two videos in a row, 2 days in a row that I'm doing videos talking about this, about these albums that I want to talk about. I want to talk about this album. An update, first of all, thank you for everybody who sent their well wishes about my video yesterday about talking about Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusions, 1 and 2. There were like 4 or 5 of you, 6, I don't know, but thank you all for your wishes. A little update on my eye. As you can see with the sunglasses, it is, it's still pretty red inside. It is improved greatly since yesterday. I think about shortly after I did the video yesterday, I realized that I could see. When I woke up yesterday, I was still blind. That sounds like a song lyric from some band. But over the course of the day, it did get better. I'm probably now at about, considering I was at 0, I couldn't see anything in my left eye on Saturday. Now today, Monday, I can see, I think I'm around, I'd guess I'm probably around 50%, which is a big improvement. If I was like this for the first time ever, it would suck. But considering where I came from, 50% is pretty good. But I still can't really do anything. I can't, today it's Monday. Normally I hike on Monday. The doctor said don't do any exercise. I also exercise every day. I can't exercise. I can't hike. I can't really work because I work on the computer. I worked for a couple of hours this morning. And it's just having the computer screen in my face, it's too much. And I turned the brightness down, but then I couldn't really see it. So I'm kind of limited in my things that I can do. That's why I'm doing another one of these videos again today. But thank you for everybody who gave me your well wishes. It is appreciated. Today I'm going to talk about Exciter, Violence and Force, or as my friend Jeff Simpsons and I referred to this album in 1984, Violence in Sports, where I was saying it as Violence in Sports instead of Violence and Force. Weren't we clever? And here it is, if you're wondering what it looks like. Violence and Force, one of the greatest / worst heavy metal album covers ever. I think it's in the vein of Anthrax, Fistful of Metal. It was 1984 heavy metal. What do you want? The reason I'm talking about this, or what really motivated me to talk about this today, was my good friend Kevin Montavon, all the way up there in Columbus, Ohio. We've known each other for, I guess, almost 20 years. Online, we met online, as people tend to do. And even back then, in 2003 or something, we knew each other online. We've had the opportunity to meet a couple of times in person. Once in Cleveland, Ohio, and earlier this year in Phoenix, Arizona. Both times we're big Pearl Jam fans. We're traveling to see Pearl Jam. He went from Columbus to Cleveland. I went from Toronto at the time to Cleveland in 2006. And then we met again this year in Phoenix, Arizona. We went for a hike. Anyway, so Kevin saw Exciter on Friday this past week for the first time ever. Kevin's a little bit older than I am. I'm 53. It's my birthday this week. I'm going to be 53 years old. I think Kevin is 54 now. And he's never seen Exciter in all his years. And they were playing in Cincinnati. Exciter played in Cincinnati on Friday last week, and Kevin went. And I was very excited for him to go because he's never seen them. And plus, Exciter is Canadian, as am I. And I thought, I felt vicariously that I was kind of going to Exciter. And I only saw, and I'll get to that in a minute, my history with Exciter. Kevin, he told me, he messaged me. He was messaging me before the show. He showed me a picture of the merch and everything. And, posted about it later that night or the next day. He sent me a message saying, I asked him, how was it? He said he was smiling the whole time. He just had such a great time. That made me very happy to hear that. He said it was just like an old school metal night, seeing this band Exciter that he's been listening to, he said, for 35 years. He used to do a college radio show, I think in Columbus, not Columbius, in Columbus, and he used to play Exciter 35 years ago. So he said he was just so happy to be, having this old school metal night, seeing, I guess, some of his friends and seeing Exciter for the first time. So that kind of got me back into Exciter mode. That's why I'm talking about Exciter today right now, as a matter of fact. My history with Exciter, it's quite long. I got into them in 1984. Violence and Force. They had their second album, Violence and Force, which was their second album. Their first one was Heavy Metal Maniac, of course. But I didn't know that at the time. So when I first heard Exciter, it was Violence and Force. I don't know when it was. It was in, I remember clearly listening to it camping. I used to go camping with my family. I was 14 in 1984. And I used to record, I've talked about this, I think, before. There used to be a lot of metal shows on the radio back then. And I used to tape a lot of them, you know, these midnight metal shows and power hours and whatever. They were usually on a Friday. Q107 in Toronto had the all-night metal machine. It used to be every Friday. It was from like 11 at night till 6 in the morning. I sometimes stayed up all night writing down the songs, recording it, stuff like that. And if I remember correctly, I heard Violence and Force. Actually, the first song I heard was Pounding Metal. I think it must have been in the spring of '84, maybe early summer, maybe between April and June, let's say, April, May, or June. And at that time, I loved it. That was kind of new for me. I'd been into Metallica for a few months at that point. And also around that same time as Exciter, I discovered Raven. And what's amazing about Raven and Exciter, drawing parallels, is I mentioned Kevin went to see Exciter in Columbus on Friday. Raven was playing that same night, which is terrible that the crowd was, I guess, divided because, you know, they're going to draw more or less. Probably if you're a fan of one, you're a fan of both. So amazing that Raven and Exciter were both playing in Cincinnati on the same night last Friday. So I was into Metallica, Raven, Exciter, Slayer also around that time. And so for me, the summer of '84 was camping at Point Farms. I think that's in Port Elgin or something, or around Goderich, Ontario, on Lake Huron. I used to go camping there and listen to, I used to take my little portable boom box, I guess they call it, Ghetto Blaster. Maybe it's not correct to say Ghetto Blaster anymore, because I guess people used to take it and blast the music in ghettos. And I had all these mixtapes, stuff that I take from the radio, in addition to buying the albums. And Pounding Metal was huge for me at that time. I listened to that song constantly. And also Violence and Force was one of the early ones I heard the song. And so that was in '84. Never saw them live. Similar to Kevin, I never saw them live until 2019. They were playing a New Year's Eve show in Toronto on December 31st, 2019. I was back visiting Toronto at that time. That was the first time I'd been back visiting my family and friends in Canada in 4 years at that point. First time I'd been back at Christmas. And Exciter was playing I, Mother Earth, which is, they put out, I did a video about this, my favorite Canadian album ever was I, Mother Earth, Senior and Fish. They were playing the same night. And I had a similar choice as Kevin between Raven and Exciter in Cincinnati last Friday. I had to choose between Exciter and I, Mother Earth. I chose Exciter. I've seen I, Mother Earth a number of times, including in 2015 when my dad died. I was back for my dad's funeral and got to sneak in an I, Mother Earth show. So I saw Exciter. I have some props. Here's my ticket from that Exciter show. This was at a place called the Hard Luck Bar, I think it was. Exciter, special guest, Chainbreaker, Survival Instinct, Twilight Hammer. Those were all local bands. I don't think any of them played. I think two of them dropped off. There was no complimentary champagne at midnight. But anyway, so it was cool to see Exciter. Finally, after all those years, I saw Exciter. At that point, I guess I had been a fan since '84 to 2019, 35 years. Very cool to see them, especially that I was back visiting. And that one. And then amazingly, they were just a few months later in March, I think it was going to be 2020, or April 2020, they were supposed to play here in Mexico City. That was going to be in April or May. That obviously got kiboshed. Everybody knows what happened. So that sucked, but then they rescheduled it, which was going to suck even more because it was a Mexican and South American tour. and they rescheduled all the dates except Mexico. For whatever reason, they couldn't fit it in. So I thought, that sucks. I lose out on seeing Exciter. But then that got canceled again, and then it was rescheduled for March 2022, which is this year. And they did reschedule Mexico, so I saw them again. And there's my ticket from my Exciter show when I saw them here in Mexico just a few months ago, 7 months ago, something like that. Very cool. So I'd never seen them in 35 years of fandom, and then I saw them twice in less than 2 years. Pretty cool. Or around 2 years, a little bit over 2 years. Pretty cool. And I think they're playing it here in Mexico again with Raven. Again, these parallels. And they're both three-piece bands too, Exciter and Raven. And so I think Exciter and Raven are playing next year in Mexico City, but I'm not sure if that show fell through or not. And a couple of other props here. Both times I've seen them. Exciter is doing pretty well. For three guys, they've got the two original guys, Dan Beeler, the drummer and singer, original, Alan Johnson, the bass player, John Ricci, who was the original guitar player. He, I guess, was back some years ago, and then a couple years ago, I guess he quit or something happened, and Daniel DK joined Exciter, and DK is a young guy. I remember in the metal circle, we don't like change. I think a lot of people in the metal community don't like change, and so when it was announced, I think that John Ricci was out, everybody turned their nose up and said, no Ricci, no Exciter, just like no Bill Ward, no Black Sabbath. And this guy Daniel DK joined Exciter, who was very young. He played, I don't think he still plays, in a Toronto band called Diamonds. And at the time, I guess I didn't really care one way or the other, but after seeing them live these two times, I would take DK over. And this is nothing against John Ricci, but man, DK is young. He's a great performer. I mentioned to Kevin, he's very aware of himself. He kind of poses for pictures. He's not a poser, but he poses for picture. I noticed that he's aware of people taking pictures, and he gives them a little, metal face, or strikes a pose or something. I like that. He's interactive with the audience. He's smiling the whole time. He's, singing along. I think he brings great energy to Exciter. And now I don't collect picks. I've never once, and probably never will, ask anybody for a guitar pick. But occasionally, if somebody gives me one, it's cool. I like it. And DK gave me this. I was right at the front both times when I saw them in Toronto, New Year's Eve 2019. And in Mexico City this year, I was in the front, and DK gave me the pick. I can't remember which show is from which, but there's the two picks. It's got the DK one finger salute there, and turned out DK is a great guy. He very generously gave his time to my channel 3 or 4 months ago. We did I guess you call it a podcast. It was me and DK and Jason McMaster from Dangerous Toys, Broken Teeth, Watchtower, Igniter, I said Broken Teeth, Godzilla Motor Company, all kinds of bands. Chris McLernan from Saigon Kick and Cold Sweat. We got together and we talked about Kiss Alive 1 and 2, if you want to check that out. So I'm 100% in the DK army. Very, very nice guy, very generous with his time, very friendly, great performer, great guitarist. I watched him doing sound check in Toronto, and he was playing a little, I remember he played Never Enough by LA Guns at sound check in Mexico City. I heard him playing Where Eagles There by Iron Maiden. He's a big metal fan. DK is awesome and Exciter. And one last prop. This was cool. I also got this gig poster when Exciter played in Mexico City. It's signed, and this is another thing. I never ask for autographs. I don't seek them out. This came pre-signed. It's here's DK here, 666, Alan Johnson, and Dan Beeler there. So a cool poster. I have to get this framed along with about 20 others, and buy a big house with a lot of walls where I can put all these posters on. So there's my Exciter history. So getting to the album, going through this track by track. And it's amazing to think that Exciter at some point, I talked about this with Kevin the other day, Exciter for a period there, they were like contemporaries and peers and pretty much on the same level as Metallica. Metallica, those bands I was listening to at that time, Metallica, Raven, Exciter, Razor from Toronto, Slayer, those bands, they were all, to me, more or less on the same level. I love them all. I did like some more than others. But amazing to think what happened in that scene that Metallica just took off, and but good. These other ones, Razor's still around. They just put out a new album about a month ago from Guelph, Ontario, where I lived for many, many years. Exciter still going, still touring. They're actually playing shows now. They played Cincinnati the other day. I think they were playing in just like a mini tour. I think they were doing around 6 or 7 shows. They played Chicago. They're playing in LA, I think, later this week or next week or something. Maybe they're playing in Salt Lake City tonight. I don't know where else they're playing, but cool that these bands are still around. So getting to this, going through this track by track, this was a big album for me. This was one of my, for this thrash metal, speed metal, whatever you want to call it, this was one of the early ones for sure, along with Kill 'Em All and Slayer, Show No Mercy, Raven, All for One, Razor, Executioner's Song, and even before that, Escape the Fire. No, was it Escape the Fire? Yeah, it was. With the guitar, the Razor guitar pick. Anyway, first track here is Oblivion, which is just it's filler. And I've mentioned before, there's nothing wrong with filler. There's good filler and there's bad filler. This is just normal filler. It's more like an intro. It's 30 or 40 seconds leading into the aforementioned and the title track, Violence and Force, or Violence in Sports. Living in fear in the ditches at the living in fear in the trenches at the front or ditches at the front, fighting for your life, never knowing what's to come. Enemy attack, walls of fire burn the sky, fighting with the rats of war, preparing to die. Violence and Force. Love that song. Fast-paced, thrashy. I don't think Exciter was quite thrash exactly, but at the time they were. To me, as I said, I put them in the same category as these other bands that were definitely thrash. And going back to Jason McMaster, who I mentioned earlier that we did that talk with DK from Exciter, Jason plays in a band called Igniter, who did a killer cover of title track, Violence and Force. They did a whole, it was called 85 Mixtape or Mixtape 85. They did a whole bunch of metal covers. They did Fast as a Shark by Accept, Bonded by Blood by Exodus, a Merciful Fate song or King Diamond, I can't remember. And they did Violence and Force. So Jason singing Violence and Force. I'm a huge Jason McMaster fan, so to hear him singing Violence and Force was very cool to me, and a great version too. Scream in the Night is next. Injecting their poison at will. I hate singing, but I also get the urge to injecting their poison at will, going right in for the kill. You have to fight for your life when you hear the Scream in the Night. Great song too. Pounding Metal, as I mentioned, this is the first song I heard. This is the only song really on this album that's really anthemic. Going to the show, pounding your fist to the air, head slamming, brains are bashing, it's over the top, you don't care. Head banging rats rip this place from the ceiling to the ground. Killer song, very pounding metal, pounding metal, you're pounding metal. Oh, I couldn't get enough of that song when I was 14 years old. Love it. And then I think at some point, now this is a weird, I don't know why, there's a song, and I think it was next. Now on here, Destructor is listed next, but I think on the original album, I know for a fact there was Evil Sinner was a song, and I think it was at this point on this CD, for some reason, when they reissued these CDs in whatever year, they were late 90s or early 2000s, they omitted Evil Sinner. I don't know why. It wasn't a space issue, because this album is only, I don't know, 45 or 50 minutes. I don't know why it was omitted. But Evil Sinner is a good one too. That's Shakam tonight to burn. The Sky, and Dan Beeler sings this Sky in the highest, screechiest voice, King Diamond territory. She'll come tonight to burn the sky. There's no way I'm even going to attempt to reach that high voice. I can't even sing anything, let alone that high-pitched Sky. So Evil Sinner, evil sinner. Killer song. I say that a lot. Everything is a killer song. What else am I supposed to say? Phenomenal, fantastic, awesome, great. Choose your adjective. So next is Destructor on this CD. Anyway, I listen to almost all my music exclusively in MP3 format digitally. So the fact that that CD is missing Evil Sinner, I don't really care because I listen to it digitally. So Destructor is for sure. Violence and Force is very fast and thrashy. Destructor is even faster and thrasher. It's the closest to thrash metal in this song. We have the initiative to kill. I hate because I can't sing for shit. But I want to sing it. We have the initiative to kill. You will be the prey tonight. That's the first lines, and the chorus is stunning your senses, blinding your eyes. Submission comes fast when you're hit. Destructor defies. Awesome, I love it. All the lyrics on this album. It's a very 1984 heavy metal album. Lots of songs about swords, screaming, darkness, fire, night, clouds, skies, destruction, burning the skies, things like this, which is a Scorpion song, We'll Burn the Sky. Very classic metal this is. Not quite new wave of British heavy metal, but the burgeoning thrash metal. I put this down. What comes after Destructor? Swords of Darkness, scorching through the, again, it's my instinct to sing, scorching through the icy sky, filled with manic rage, that's a good one. Swords of Darkness. Is it killer? Why not? Delivering to the Master. I haven't mentioned my favorite song so far, and Delivering to the Master is not quite, but it has yet to come. I haven't forgotten. Delivering to the Master is cool. Acoustic guitar intro, and then the drums coming into and it's slower. It's not as fast as Violence and Force or Destructor. What's the beginning of Delivering to the Master? In the night, I will be waiting. I will be lurking, waiting for my time to come. No one messes with the dealer. I could burn for what I've done. Blood is boiling in my brain. You'll never know of tomorrow. No one knows how far to go. Delivering to the Master. Don't sweat it. The man's got to show. Delivering to the Master. Killer. Again, killer. Dan Beehler really screeches. Very, very, he could really belt it out. Next is Saxons of the Fire. Classic song title, Saxons of the Fire. It's got all those heavy metal, 1980s heavy metal cliches I just mentioned. Saxon, the band, Fire. They're coming after you, run for your lives. Warriors of Hell, fight the fight. They're coming after you, run for your lives. Saxons of the Fire, ride tonight. Dun, dun, dun. Am I going to say killer? I gotta, fuck it, it's killer. I like that song. These songs are all killer. And the last song on here, this is my favorite song. The last song on this album is War is Hell. That is for sure my favorite song. It was the dawn of a new day. Smoke rings filled the air. Some kind of a warning, allies in despair. That's got a great groove to that one. That's not thrashy at all. It's not anthemic like Pounding Metal or, I guess that was the only anthemic song, but it's got a kind of a great groove rocker. I wish they played those. That's my one, it's not a complaint, but I think, man, and they did some great songs when I've seen them live. They did Cry of the Banshee, Stand Up and Fight, which are maybe my two favorite Exciter albums, which are both from Heavy Metal Maniac. I wish if DK sees this or if word gets out, Exciter needs to add War is Hell and let's say Delivering to the Master, but I think especially War is Hell. If they play in Mexico City, that would make my day to see Exciter play War is Hell. So that's all for today. Exciter, Violence and Force, a great and very, very for me influential album on my what came to be. I was full thrash probably by the end of that year, or by 85. Anyway, I was well into Exodus and Testament a little bit later. Megadeth, of course. Megadeth was the summer of 85. I think Exodus too around the same time. Exciter was they weren't one of my gateway bands for metal, but gateway bands for this thrash metal, speed metal, whatever you want to call it. And they were on Bonsai Records. I had the record at the time. It was this side and that side. Fantastic. So that's all. I hope I'm feeling better. I don't know if there's another album that I'm going to feel like talking about tomorrow if I can't do anything because of this eye. But again, thank you for the well wishes, and thank you for listening to me talk and say the word killer. Maybe make that a drinking game. Take a shot every time I say the word killer or use an adjective. And that's it. Thanks for watching me talking about Exciter, Violence and Force. Yes!